All right, hey everybody, welcome to Chiustream. Welcome everybody. And before we get into the stream, let's start it off right. I'm just going to give you some instructions on what we're going to be doing here. Last time we did um, monochromatic paintings. It's very difficult, is much more challenging. Let's do it again. This time I got cinematic um, dimensions here, which is always fun. Makes you feel like you're working in the movies even more. And this one's going to be easier, okay? The first time we did really quick ones. This time we're going to slow it down. You're just going to do two of these compositions. And if you want to download the same compositions that I'm working from, you can look in the comments below. I posted a link, as well if you're watching this off of YouTube later on, you can see a pop-up button there where you can download the file. Okay, so this time we're just going to concentrate on two of them. We will be using this handout a couple times or a few times, so you could just pick two of these very basic compositions to work from and create your monochromatic painting based off of those compositions. Okay, if monochromatic is a little too difficult for you, definitely dial it down. Feel free to just do a monochromatic painting. Okay, monochromatic paintings are still extremely difficult to do them really well. Um, and some people never even get into color throughout their whole entire careers, and they still do extremely well, very well respected in the community and all sorts of good things. Okay, so let's start off with a little roll call. Let me know where you're from, and I'll give you a big shout out. I see somebody, B Panther, has already said, "Good morning from LA." Right on. It's great to see my Californian brothers and sisters on the stream. Waikit, Malaysia's up in here for sure. Mika Madden from Florence, great. Belgium, New Zealand, North Carolina, they're all coming in now. Edmonton, Russia, St. Sebastian's, Singapore, Italy, Netherlands, El Salvador, Italy, Paris, San Diego, Italy. Holy smokes. Right on. Netherlands, Salt Lake City, Toronto, Italy again, Berlin, Brazil. Right on. Good to see you, Sergio. And a whole bunch of other ones, Chile, Germany, and so on and so forth. Wonderful. Really, always, always great to hear who's out there. It always amazes me that that we can connect like this. Isn't that great? Um, so if this is your very first time on the stream and you want to ask me a question, you can feel free to do so. You just type in into the chat on Livestream, right? You could just type in the word question in capital letters first, okay? And then your question afterwards. That way I'll be able to read your questions very easily. The other thing about these streams is that, it's half Q&A and it's half practicing, drawing exercises, staying artistically fit. You know, that's how you're gonna get real good. Nothing works better than persistent hard work and common sense. Okay, so persistent hard work is doing these exercises. The common sense is doing them right. So one big thing about doing these right is that you are concentrating in the right way. It's like having the right posture when doing exercises at the gym. Okay, whatever you're painting, take the time to think about what that painting is going to be. Try to visualize the brush strokes, the pencil marks, so on and so forth before you put it down. Okay, that's very important. Visualizing is the most powerful way to think. And it's the hardest because it encompasses everything else, every other way to think. For example, um, anatomy, if you were wondering about anatomy stuff, a lot of times, in order to learn anatomy well, you have to be able to visualize. You have to be able to see those pectoral muscles or whatever it might be below the skin. Even if the animal is a large one, has a lot of fat, or it might be even a person, so on and so forth, you still have to be able to see through that and visualize. Okay, and that's just one of pretty much limitless examples of how visualizing helps us out the most. It really umbrellas every other way of thinking. Okay, so the other thing I want to mention is a couple things coming up. Okay, Stockholm, that's going to be uh, an awesome, awesome workshop. First time in Stockholm, first time for many of the instructors, so definitely take advantage. Okay, Stockholm, October 3rd and 4th, Schoolism live workshops with production designer, Disney artist Mike Yamada. I'm going to be teaching as well. Luis Gonzalez from Pixar is going to be teaching story. Jason Seiler from editorial illustration fame, Rolling Stone magazine, Time magazine, all sorts of things. He's going to be teaching how he illustrates. Terrell Whitlatch is going to be coming to teach creature anatomy. We haven't even announced that one yet. She is the foremost expert in creature anatomy, and this is coming from a person that designs creatures all the time. And the last guest artist that hasn't been announced yet is Shelley Wan. Shelley Wan is a masterful Pixarian illustrator, and she did work on a movie called Inside Out, as many of you have already seen, and so on and so forth. So it's going to be such an epic, epic lineup. Definitely check that out. And then after that, we have Colorado, October 24th, 25th, with the Legend of Legends. One of my absolute artistic heroes, artistic gods, Craig Mullins. I'm going to be teaching as well. And Steven Silver, character designer extraordinaire. Carla Ortiz is going to be teaching. Jeff Turley is going to be teaching. Carla Ortiz, live action fame, Jurassic World, working on Doctor Strange. Jeff Turley, he did a lot of the designs for Paperman, as well as all sorts of things Disney related. Now he is at Paramount, I believe. And last but not least, Terrell Whitlatch, Creature Anatomy in Colorado. That's going to be crazy awesome. Dubai after that, November 6th and 7th. I will give you more details coming up, but we're coming to Dubai as well. Okay, and in a couple weeks in Toronto is going to be the Fan Expo, biggest comic convention in Canada, September 3rd to the 6th. You can find us in Artist Alley, table A468, and we will be bunking with our buddy, um, artist extraordinaire Jean-Baptiste Monge. It's going to be awesome. So lots of really cool things to look forward to. And yeah, let's go into some questions, okay? Before that, let me just explain a little bit about my thought process here in the very first composition, right? What I'm thinking is, there was kind of like a big, darker shape. There was a smaller, skinnier, darker shape. So I was thinking perhaps it's the bigger, darker shape is the jungle. And the jungle is pulling this guy back into the jungle kind of thing, vines and so on and so forth. So you can kind of see an arm. And then to add importance to the figure, I'm putting in a bunch of little parts where the jungle kind of opens up and you see light coming through, and that'll be really nice contrast for it'll be really nice contrast for the silhouette. It's pretty much going to be a silhouette, two, maybe three tones at the most, um, of the figure, right? So let's go on to the next thing here. So I had a question, but I totally, oh, okay. The question goes, and this is from B Panther, it goes, any way to improve the stream quality? The low quality makes what you're doing look blurry. That's definitely a very, appreciative comment. So yes, it is a little blurry. If I turn it up, the only people that will be able to watch the streams are people with extremely high internet. Okay? The solution for this is that I always post high-res images or high-res videos, okay, on my YouTube channel. And you can go to that YouTube channel at youtube.com/digitalbobbert. Okay, and then you can find all of my drawing exercises there. I actually have a playlist so that you can just play one a day kind of thing. Definitely look that up, subscribe so you don't forget, and then keep on the regimen. It's been so great to see all the people that have been doing this consistently, practicing their art, practicing in the right ways. It's been so cool to see the improvement. Fantastic. Okay. And the other thing about the YouTube page is that it's all for you guys. You know, it's a free thing that I do just on my off time. Well, not even my off time. This is actually business hours, but I schedule it in, trying to give back to the community. So take advantage. If you like art, you want to learn art, you don't know what to do, you don't have a regiment, you don't have a routine, this is for all of those kind of people. Because a lot of times it's hard to just begin. It's hard to get on a routine. Um, but the main thing is that you have to spend your time right. And a big part of that to excel in the long run is to have a really great routine. Now, let's think about this. Imagine the number of days of your life were dependent on how you used each day. How would you spend today? Right? Imagine if how long you have to live is how much you take advantage of the days that you have. What is the quality of your life right now? And it doesn't mean, oh, we have to work super hard. It just means to be as involved as possible in the important things of your life. So, I'm very, big into family as well. So that could very much mean, your relationship with your siblings or your parents or your grandparents. When was the last time you took grandma out for lunch? That kind of a thing, right? And it could very much be all about your work as well. It could totally relate to your work. What are you doing with your day? Okay, so let's move on to the uh, next question here. Next question says, what's the second window, the copy of the painting for? What's that second window for? Well, that second window is the small version of my painting. Right now I am painting the smaller version. Like the big window, it has the same size thumbnail as the smaller window. And that's because, in the beginning of our paintings, don't we generally do thumbnails. We generally do small sketches. Well, opening up that smaller window through Window, Arrange, New Window, um, allows me to open up two windows of the same document and be able to have it a different size, right? So one, I can keep it zoomed in, one, I can keep it zoomed out. And the great thing about that is, when you paint traditionally with traditional paint or paper or whatever, when you're painting, a lot of times you look really close at your paper and you start painting away nice and up close, and then you back up and then you paint it from far away and then up close and back up and so on and so forth. But digitally, when you do this on Photoshop, a lot of times you zoom out, you get disoriented, right? You kind of lose your placement and you're wondering, okay, where was I concentrating on? What was I doing again? Um, which can ruin the flow of your painting. So what I like to do is I like to open up a secondary window so I can see it from far away and up close at the same time. Now in the beginning, I really just care about looking at it from far away first because essentially that's my thumbnail, right? I'm just thumbnailing this thing out. And you can see now I start to zoom in for more intricate details, yet I can still see my painting from far away in the smaller window. A lot of times, how you paint and draw can totally change once you're concentrating on the right things at the right time and even blocking out certain things at the right time. That's just as important. Sometimes the ability to forget or block out is just as important as the ability to remember or concentrate on the right things. So, what should you think about? What shouldn't you think about? What should you stay away from? Some really good thoughts to think about, okay? Now, the other really cool thing that I've been really enjoying about the community that you guys have really created with me is all the submissions. People have been submitting their work. All you need to do is submit your work with the hashtag Chiustream, okay? Hashtag it Chiustream, and I will find it. I'll put my favorites up um, every stream. Okay, so here's some of my favorites from last week's stream. And you can find all these people on Instagram this time. This one's from Toronto, Troy. Right on, Troy. Jason, fantastic. Really great. Something to think about going forward is think about how much saturation do you want? Because even though it might be a monochromatic painting, a lot of times we might choose to have it all pretty much grayscale, right? With perhaps just an accent of a part in your image which is much more saturated. You could play around with this kind of stuff as well. Okay, like the green here is actually not super intense green because green, when it gets really saturated, it starts to look kind of garish pretty quick. So I want to start off with something a little bit more or a little bit less saturated, and then have those parts of the light that come through the jungle, I want those parts to be more saturated. So I'm kind of saving the really saturated stuff for a particular element in my painting. So it's, again, that's through visualizing, right? Just thinking about the overall concept of your painting and then going forward like that. Okay. Next question here, and if you have any questions, just type them into the chat and with the name question to begin with, okay? So next question says, do you think of the light key before starting out the do you think of the light key before starting out the composition, or do you work and tweak that along the way? I do have a overall idea, of what I'm gonna do. Um, and really good days, I would have an even clearer idea. The really good days, I can visualize things quite well and I'll have a lot less of a problem because I'll just sort through all of my ideas, just run them all by me, visualizing them all, and then just kind of seeing them and going, that one doesn't work that good. This one would work a little bit better, and so on and so forth. Okay, so, and that is important because if you work and you tweak along the way and you don't have a general idea of what you're going to paint, it gets difficult to make it cohesive. Okay, next question is, can you paint the lazy voice someday? I hope you had a great B-day. Thank you so much. It was my birthday last week. Um, so thank you for the wishes. The lazy voice that he's talking about is just, there is this lazy voice in our heads that talks to all of us. That's the voice that says, let's just chill out a little bit. Let's just hang out, rest a little bit, watch some TV. I'm tired. I don't want to do that. I want to do this. I just want to do the easy thing. Well, guess what? Success does not come from always doing the easy thing. And actually, it comes when you are concentrating on doing the things that are really good for you, but really challenging as well. You gotta do the things that are gonna be good for you. Now, big part about moving up in your career, one of the best habits to adopt is to do more than you're paid for. It will come back to you in one way or another, trust me. Even if your employer doesn't notice, your supervisor doesn't care, or whatever it might be, if you are always doing more than you're asked to do, people will notice eventually, even if it isn't your boss. Perhaps it's somebody else that'll hire you away, so on and so forth. That's how people move up very quick. Because if you're only doing what you're paid for, well, nobody knows if you can do any more than that. Then if they promote you, that's kind of like they're taking a risk because they don't know if you can do more. You see? Always try to add value to whatever it is you're doing. Stay away from the lazy voice. Don't listen to it. And try to shrink that voice smaller and smaller. Just like what I was saying before, sometimes it's the ability to forget or block out things. That is the most important thing to do. Not just remembering, the really important things that you should be concentrating on, but what should you not be concentrating on. And trust me, when you are tired, most of the time you feel like you can't go any further. Well, most of the time you can. You can totally go a lot further. And many of us know this. Many of us have thought about stopping, but then you just fight it. You continue on for 5 more minutes, 10 more minutes, and then how long do you end up drawing for or painting for? A lot of times you end up painting for another hour or so, maybe 2 hours, maybe three, who knows? But most of the time it's just getting that initial start. Okay, so let's go on to the next question. Next question goes, what's the best way to avoid artist block? I can't think of anything right now. These exercises, these really, no joke, these exercises are the best way to get past artist block because you don't have to think as much about what it is you're going to paint. You already have a head start. You already have a task. When you're dealing with complete blue sky. You have no idea what the story's about. You have no idea what the character's about. You have no idea what you're going to be painting or what you're going to be painting with, what composition and all that stuff. That's when we tend to have more artist block. But in this exercise, I'm giving you a very basic start, right? Something that's so basic that I'm painting a jungle scene. You could be painting, puppies having a tea party, for example. I know it's a weird example, but um, each one of these could work. There's so many possibilities, and that's why this exercise works so great. The other thing about it is that it's so simplified that your style will not be dictated by this exercise. You can do something completely cartoony, and then the next person can do something completely realistic, and so on and so forth, using the exact same exercise. This exercise is about increasing your artistic ability, your mental library, and your ability to visualize. Okay, let's go on to the next question here. So the next question goes, when is a good moment to quit a day job for the big adventure of freelancing? Any advice for a dreamer? Right on. So, well, the most important thing is that you are using your common sense. I always say, put in the effort, and use your common sense, right? Nothing works better than that. Um, what I did was I saved up enough that uh, it made up about 9 months living expenses, right? Living expenses, as in you are not going to the steakhouse every weekend. You are not going to the steakhouse. You are eating instant noodles or, Kraft cheese and macaroni, that kind of thing, um, until you get more work and more jobs and so on and so forth. So what I did was I saved up enough for 9 months and waited, kept going at my own freelance till the point where I was making a little bit less than minimum wage. You know, not because I wasn't getting paid enough, but because my jobs weren't enough. At that point, then I felt like, okay, now I can make the jump. You see, in between having a real, a full-time job and going on my own to do my dream job of just being an independent artist, freelancing and stuff like that, I had a transitional period where it was very, very tough because I was doing the full-time job as well as working on my freelance career, right? So it got to a point where it was literally 15, 16 hours a day of work, right? Because I was burning the candle at both ends. I was moonlighting two jobs. But that definitely made it a lot easier to go into freelance full time because there is a transitional period. If you have no transition and you are going from full-time artist to quitting your job and now you're going to start freelance, you're going to have a much rockier road and it might not be successful even. So even though it's harder, I always recommend giving that extra effort so that there's a transitional period where you are doing your full-time job and you're starting to work on your freelance career at the same time. Okay, now let's go on to the next question. I have no idea who wrote this. It's the funniest question ever. Do you think digital painting is art? That is the funniest question ever because, I'm digital painting right now and I call myself an artist and I work with digital paint. Actually teach digital painting. Uh, Actually, the first person to teach digital painting in Ontario. Maybe, definitely one of the first in all of Canada, my own country. So, do I think digital painting is art? Yes. Do you think that pastel paintings is an art? Do you think that oil painting is an art? Watercolor, so on and so forth. I think it's all about what you do with the medium, right? If you do just a couple dots, couple lines, and doesn't really say anything, doesn't really mean anything, and you did it digitally in Photoshop, I don't really consider that art as much, right? But if you painted something that, had substance, stuff like that, then I would consider that art. But of course, the definition of art, I don't really mess with that because it's so it's such a gray area. What is art? What's considered art? What's not? Let's go on to the next question. Okay, so next question, this is from a while ago, so I'm sorry, I'm just getting to it now. Where do we start? Where do we start with the file? I'm not really sure what that means. Perhaps that means which thumbnail do you start off with? You could start off with any of them. Okay, we're only doing two. So you could just pick the first one, pick another one, and that's it. Okay, um, nice and simpler of a task, which allows us to concentrate even more on these two individual thumbnails. And it's gonna be really fun. You can see that this one, it's a monochromatic painting, but you can see how just playing with saturation has now, um, even though everything is generally greenish, right? Lime greenish, um, just playing around with saturation and values all of a sudden makes the background feel much more colorful than the foreground. So there's lots of ways to lots of options that you can do with just monochromatic painting. And if you've been following along, definitely do so if you haven't been following along with all the other instructional or uh, painting and drawing exercises. You can see a progression, right? A progression of thought, a progression of things to concentrate on. Started off with linear drawings and monochromatic, just black and white paintings actually, not even monochromatic yet, just value paintings. And then it went into now, after quite a few weeks, now we've gone into monochromatic. And we're going to be doing this for many weeks and going back into value sketches and value paintings and so on and so forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then we're going to get into other uh, color schemes. We'll be doing a bunch of analogous color schemes, um, triadic color schemes, so on and so forth, right? So that's the progression, that's the idea, and that's why this works, because it's this gentle progression into things that are very complex and done in a fun way. And you could feel free to absolutely do more than one of these exercises a day, especially if you have the time. Okay, next question says, hi Bobby, I've heard you say that style is something that comes naturally, but how to narrow down and find a specific theme to go with, like the creatures that are so special for you? Okay, well first, style, yes, it comes naturally uh, as you keep collecting, as you keep learning more and more knowledge. Okay, it doesn't just come to you naturally by sitting at your desk and just drawing and drawing the same stuff every day without actual, um, learning or finding a teacher to learn from and so on and so forth. Oh. There is all of a sudden a bunch of questions. You know, your style really. I used to sit at my desk, really, like just sit at my desk, just drawing over and over again, the same kind of stuff over and over again, trying to create this awesome new style. But I couldn't. Why? Because I didn't have enough knowledge about what people have done in the past and what people are doing in the present, and so on and so forth. You know, if you just learn by yourself, you are literally like same situation as the caveman, except you would be the very first caveman before there were any caveman paintings. And I don't know what those cave paintings look like, but they probably looked really bad. The later ones actually look really cool, and a lot of them brilliant, brilliant designs. But it's all from learning from the people that have come before you, right? So, as much of a pain as it is, trust me when I tell you, you will thank me later on. Look to the great teachers. Look towards the great knowledge that you can find and learn from them. Because when somebody is actually teaching you, and somebody is actually uh, spending the time to distill their thoughts into something very digestible by even the most normal or beginner artist, you will learn in leaps and bounds, light years ahead of what you've been doing previously. Just an idea, just a sentence can change your thinking, change your art, and evolve it. And the best styles always come through a wonderful display of knowledge that your style is based on. That's the foundation of your style, is the knowledge that it's based on. So you have to have a great foundation, just like, a house has to have a great foundation, or else it's not going to last for very long. Okay. And by the way, on the topic of finding the right teachers, finding the right knowledge, the best kind of knowledge doesn't just come from people that know. It comes from people that also do. They don't just know. Because you really don't know anything truly until you actually, you know, do it for yourself. It's another level of knowing. Um, you would know the theories and things like that, but to have true knowledge, I think it's more like you need to apply that knowledge. And I've been in situations where, you know, I'm not going to mention any names for sure, but, I've been in situations where a teacher is also going to teach a new subject, doesn't know the subject, is pretty nervous about it, and then, oh, what does the other faculty tell him to do? Well, here's a book. Read this book before you have to teach it, and just read the chapter uh, the day before you have to teach it the next day. Poor person, this person doesn't is not trained in this subject, but yet has to teach it, and all of a sudden has to teach all these people this stuff that that person doesn't really actually understand or know. But thank goodness for those kind of people as well, and these kind of situations, these kind of organizations where it's all about how much we can milk from the students a lot of times, not every time. But thank goodness for these kind of situations, these kind of organizations, because I never would have started schoolism. If it wasn't for that fact, if it wasn't for the fact that it was such a night and day experience learning from the people I learned from in school versus working, on Men in Black 3 and learning from my supervisor, for example. There is no comparison. There's still great teachers out there, but the best knowledge comes from the people that are actually doing it. I don't think anybody can really dispute that. You either are doing it or you've done it for many years and what you know is still relevant. Okay, next question here is okay, so next question says, it's interesting that people don't ask if digital music is music. Yeah, totally. On the other hand, uh, I saw some people questioning using computers to make music or question using computer to make music as cheating, but the general public accepts it. Okay, so not really a question, more like a statement, and I totally agree. What an interesting statement there. Yeah, digital music is totally still music, but I guess if you look at, some of the grandparents and stuff, then they'd be like, "That's not music. I'll show you music. Pass me that rubber band and whatever and spoons and I'll show you how we used to do it." Anyways, um, let's go on to the next question. So the next question says, do you rely on feedback from peers like Kay if you run into walls in your work? Absolutely. Having your good network of friends that you can bounce ideas off of is extremely important. And that's why on the Schoolism subscriptions, yeah, and by the way, I should have mentioned this a while ago. Schoolism subscriptions are back. They are open to register. Last time the demand was so great that it took a while to retool and open up the subscriptions again. So why were they so great? Because the demand has been so great because we're doing something where these classes are the most affordable source of great top level education, right? Our teachers are people that I've highly respected. And I still highly respect every single one of these teachers. Um, they're people that I sought after, people that I felt I could learn from. If I could learn from them, anybody can learn from them. These classes used to cost hundreds of dollars, and now it's simply $12 a month. You buy a year subscription, you pay $144 right off the bat, and you get a subscription to Schoolism classes for a whole entire year. You pick your course, whichever one you want to start off with, and you can change classes with the fee of $1. Now think about how much a sketchbook costs. What was the last art book that you bought? How much did that cost? Very likely it cost over $12. And it doesn't talk to you. It doesn't give you assignments. It doesn't actually teach you in visual, video, as well as audio form. So with these subscriptions, I'm really trying to just change the world in a very positive way. So if you're interested in being an artist, I definitely recommend it. And you could go to schoolism.com to buy your subscription. Now, for the next question, and yeah, Kay, I always ask Kay for my feedback or for her feedback. She can be very tough when it comes to art. A lot of times, she might even tell me to do stuff over again, but you need those kind of people. You need people that will be very honest with you to always make sure you bring out your potential. Okay, so the next question. Let's go to the next question here. How finished should these be? Simple or fully rendered? Well, my idea of fully rendered, it's definitely not going to be fully rendered, but just do what you can. It's roughly half an hour each. The first one I did took over 30 minutes, so this one will take a lot less. But you can see how I'm not really sticking to the composition completely, right? It was uh, it was a much simpler composition, but this basic sketch here is still based off of that composition. Okay, let's go on to the next question here. Okay, so when did everything seem to click for you? Meaning composition, lighting, perspective, etc. I would say after my fourth or fifth schoolism class, that's when things became um, a lot better for me. Simply because when you learn how a few really good people do stuff, you start to see these correlations, you start to see the connections, and you start to make your own connections. And then you start to, it's kind of like if you are working on exercising your triceps, great. You're going to have big triceps. Okay. But where does the real strength appear? When does that really appear? It's when you have worked on your, shoulder muscles, your deltoids, your forearms, your biceps, and now you have strong arms. You see, it's very much the same thing. That's when things really start to click for me, when I start to learn from high-end professionals and started to learn from a few of them. And that's something that, I teach, I advise, I don't really like, as a teacher, because, as a teacher, you like to teach your student, and then hopefully that person will do what you're asking them, right? But what I'm saying is, yeah, do what your teacher has asked you, learn what they've taught you, things like that, and then look at a new way. Look at how somebody else does it, completely different, and keep exploring, keep collecting knowledge, right? So as as much as it kind of almost not totally pains me to see somebody expanding and, going away from what I've taught them, I know it's important. I know it's a huge part of the learning process. So I appreciate it. Okay, let's go to the next question here. Okay, so next question says, I know this uh, sounds crazy, but how can I paint better with a mouse? I really like to know. Craig Mullins used to paint with a mouse all the way up to 2005. And by that time, we've had tablets for a while, so it's definitely possible to paint extremely well with a mouse. He's proven it. How to paint better with a mouse? Just keep working at it. Learn how other teachers think, how other artists think and do things, and try to translate that into painting with the mouse if you really want to. I'm sure you would find some advantages in there as well. I think as long as you just really concentrate on it, you'll find a way. An essential ability for learning or just success in general is to bend your concentration towards the things that matter the most. So if you just really just focus in and are doing nothing but mouse paintings and taking lessons, learning, reading books, so on and so forth. It doesn't have to be a schoolism class, even though, of course, I would say that that would be the way to go. You can definitely buy a book. You could definitely, buy a DVD or so on and so forth, or attend a workshop. But just do something where you're learning from somebody else, a professional. Okay. So the next question here is, any advice for those artists who wish to break into higher paid jobs, but somehow seem unable to do so despite working their asses off? And how important is publicity? Well, publicity gets more and more important as you live further and further away from the area that you want to, that has all the jobs. So, for example, I don't live in California, I live in Toronto. So, of course, getting my name out there, getting my stuff out there is extremely important. Um, you know, keeps your name on people's minds, things like that. To break into higher paid jobs is first thing is stop aiming for low jobs. Stop taking low jobs if you can. If you have to go from uh, your beautiful car to a used, you know, rundown thing to save some cash, do it. If it means going to less restaurants, cooking at home more, do that. Do everything you can to stay away from the smaller jobs and spend all your time on increasing your value, increasing your knowledge, making your paintings absolutely awesome because it is easier to get the bigger paying jobs when you work your butt off by yourself, create awesome stuff by yourself, and then and then put yourself out there, as opposed to starting from the very bottom and working your way to the top. That can take a lot longer. But you know what? That's really my own opinion. And what I found for me that worked the best to get those top paying jobs was I just aimed for those jobs. That's what I was looking to do. So I wasn't um, concentrating on finding like entry level positions. I was just concentrating on my talents, on my skills, and getting them as high as possible. Perhaps, hopefully, aiming anyways to be higher than most professionals. And if you can get that, even if people don't notice you right away, that just means they're going to notice you even more if your art is up to par, it's doing awesome, and all that stuff. Uh, the world has no other option but to notice you when when you're up to a certain skill level. Because the amount of people at that skill level they get less and less, right? So get your stuff really good, learn as much as you can, and put yourself out there. You have to put yourself out there. Social media is has very quickly become something that's totally necessary these days. Okay, next question. Um, says, do you think the perfect bait will be available in print again? I'd like to gift it to a friend. Uh, yeah, I definitely want to do a reprint of that since the last one's been sold out for a couple years now. Um, so I'm working on it, but there's just other things um, in the way right now. Okay, but I definitely appreciate uh, the question. Thank you very much. Let's go on to the next question here. What would be your advice on how to be a good uh, art animation teacher? Lead by example. Try to teach, think of everybody as individuals, not how do I teach art. You know, some people you push, they push back and they get stronger. Some people you push, they fall right over. Some people need encouragement, not to get pushed. You know, and some people, when you give them encouragement, they stop working hard. So I think the big part about being a good teacher is thinking about that and not treating everybody the same. You know, thinking about where they were, where are they now? That's what really, you know, and that's what really kind of grinds my gears about education in art school or college, university, whatever. Like, how can you even put a mark on art, first of all? Even though sometimes you can definitely say something works better than others. But secondly, why should, you know, if a person starts off great in your class and they're painting and drawing better than everybody else, but they don't improve at all, should they get a higher mark than the person that started off really, really bad and ended up becoming a lot better, but not better than that first guy that didn't improve at all? I'd say that your marks should be based on how much you improve, not how good are you painting now, right? Because the rate of improvement is the thing that will have much more in determining your success than the skill level you're at, especially the skill level that you're at in your teenage years or early 20s. Come on. You know, you give somebody that has a lazy work habit that paints pretty good for a 21-year-old. What are you telling the person by giving them an A or A plus? They don't have what it takes yet to make it for the long run as an artist. If you reached your potential at 21, I feel sad for you. It's not true. You know, keep going. Okay, let's go to the next question here. A while ago, you had mentioned $12 a month is affordable for most everyone. Have you thought of a scholarship fund for those who can't afford that? Is that something we can donate to? Um, is that something you could donate to? That's a really interesting question. I never really thought about that, but you can definitely do that. I've been doing my own kind of scholarship funds by just randomly giving out year subscriptions to people every once in a while, just for sharing my posts on Facebook and things like that. Um, it's interesting. That would definitely be something really cool to do, uh, instead of just me trying to do it all myself. So thank you for that comment. I'll bring it up in the next meeting. Next question. What would you say was the hardest thing about setting up your own creative company? What advice would you give to someone starting their own creative business? Constantly work on your essential, your ability to just bend your concentration towards the things that matter the most. Okay, that's number one. Especially the times in between tasks. Too many times people waste too much time in between tasks. If you could go from one task to the other without any kind of wasting time in between, you will you will do way more than you would have before. Okay, that's huge. The other huge thing is that more than half the battle is done in the planning. Okay, so if you're going to start a company, don't just start it up with a very loose plan. Have a very concrete, absolutely rock solid concrete goal and long-term plans that are well thought out, well planned, that will still probably change. But as long as you have your main goal um, down, then that becomes kind of like the compass for for where your company should go, for all your company decisions. So for example, maybe your goal is to work on, uh, say it's to work on Dota, the video game. So you get a job where it's creating a preschool show of like soft, fat fish. And then you get a much lower paying job that has something to do with some kind of property that relates more to Dota. If you can still pay your bills and you won't starve to death, take the lower paying job because that aligns with your company compass, right? So those would be my biggest things. And literally commit yourself to working as much as you can in the beginning. 12 hours a day. I would say that that's a minimum. I hate saying that, but it's the honest truth. I would, if unless you want to just depend on luck, which most likely it's not going to work out well. That's what I would say. But it's your own company. You're growing a giant oak tree and you're starting from an acorn. You're going to have to put in a lot of that work in the beginning, taking care of that company before it takes care of you. Okay, so let's go to the next question. How about creating your company with your wife or husband? Things to have in mind. Make sure that you both are completely dedicated. So no matter what happens, you guys are completely dedicated to your company and to each other, and that both parties are uh, into the idea to, of constant improvement. Not just improvement of the company, but improvement of yourself. Because things change. Things change as time goes on, right? So how's the other person going to change? You don't know that. All you can do is you can just kind of say to each other, let's try to always change in a good way, to always get better and better. And no matter what, um, there will be turmoil, there will be problems, there will be tests that life will throw in your face. Make sure that you're both completely committed to each other and to your company because you will be tested. Okay, but uh, end result is that you have an awesome life full of awesome things. So it's definitely worth it. Uh, I wouldn't have it any other way. Okay, next question here is do you prefer using a tablet monitor or pen on screen setup? Do you prefer one more than the other? Nowadays, I just like the tablet monitor setup. It's the easiest, it's the most ergonomical, easiest on my arm. Right now, I actually have a 13-inch Cintiq that I'll lay flat. I don't
really look at it. 95% of the time, I just look at the monitor and I use it pretty much as a tablet. Um, Last question here. When do you think, when you think it's, oh, okay. So this, I just had to read it and interpret it. Okay, so when do you think it would be possible to subscribe for a six month subscription instead of the annual subscription on Schoolism? We are aiming for that. There are no concrete plans of when that would happen, but we are aiming for that. Okay? All right, so there you go, everybody. Great stream. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you liked the paintings um, and the conversation. Love the questions. Thank you so much for everybody that participated in the stream. Don't forget to hashtag your submission Chiustream. Okay? Chiustream. And I'll post up my favorites for the next stream. All right. Thank you, everybody. And take care. Don't forget, Schoolism subscriptions are on right now. Get them before they run out. Hopefully, they don't run out. And yeah, take care. We'll see you guys next time.